is that man, award-winning F1 journo, who's a doyen of the industry, and he joins us on the Breakfast Club. Pete, welcome.
Thanks, mate. Yeah, good to be on.
Quite a remarkable scene with Oscar Piastri and Alpine overnight. Can you explain to us what the hell is going on?
How long have you got? Well, as far as I know, it involves 3 Aussies, you'll be pleased to hear. Obviously, Oscar himself, Daniel Ricciardo, who's currently in McLaren, as you know, and a certain Mark Webber, who happens to manage Oscar Piastri. Now, I don't know any of this for sure, but my understanding is that Webber and Oscar had an option with Alpine that Alpine had to take up by August the 1st this year. And Alpine were kind of not focused because around that time, as you might recall, a certain Fernando Alonso announced that he was leaving Alpine and going to Aston Martin for next year. So let's say they took the Alpine guys then took their eye off the ball a little bit, and probably, I would guess, were remiss in not renewing or taking up the option on Oscar's services. Behind the scenes, I would say almost certainly Oscar and Mark Webber have been talking to Zach Brown about going to McLaren next year. And Zach's probably been saying, yeah, I'd love to have him, be perfect alongside Lando Norris. But the problem is I've actually got a contract with Daniel Ricciardo for 2023. And at the time I thought he was totally mega, and I had lots of options on his side rather than my side. And at the moment, if I'm going to get rid of him, it's going to probably cost me around $25 million retainer, which I've got to pay him. And so in order to force that issue now, to get Oscar into the McLaren, they've done this. And now McLaren really have no option, excuse the pun on the word option, but they have no alternative but to put Oscar in the McLaren alongside Lando. And they're probably going to have to pay off Daniel or come to an agreement with him. And then the next question, of course, is where will Daniel go? And I suspect the problem there is that there aren't many places he can go unless he wants to pay a lot of money and go to Williams or something. I can't imagine Alpine would have him back. He drove for them before. And it comes under the heading of, Daniel should never have left Red Bull in the first place. But anyway, we all know that, and we've been saying that a million times. So you got all these 3 Aussies, and I think at the end of it, Daniel will probably be quite grateful to Mark, because he'll end up with quite a lot of money for not driving. Oscar will be happy because he'll be in a McLaren rather than an Alpine, which from his point of view long-term has got to be a better bet. And Alpine are then going to have to look for another driver. It could be some young French driver like, say, Théo Pourchaire, who's doing really well in Formula 2 this year.
Telling me that Oscar Piastri is going to kick Daniel Ricciardo out of the seat effectively.
Yeah, that's what I can't imagine in a million years he would be turning down the Alpine drive unless it was to go to McLaren. It wouldn't be at Ferrari because, I can't imagine Charles Leclerc's going to leave Ferrari to go to Alpine. It's not going to be at Red Bull. It's not going to be at Mercedes. So where else would it be? It'd have to be a Mercedes drive, a McLaren drive.
That's quite phenomenal, really. So why would Alpine release that statement? If they hadn't done that deal, what's in it for them? What's the benefit for them to release that and be made to look like gooses?
Well, yeah, obviously they didn't want to look like gooses, and they didn't realise, I guess, when they put the statement out that they hadn't taken up the option on Oscar's contract. I mean, if that was something that Mark and Oscar were hoping that might happen, it couldn't have been better, could it, for Fernando to just sort of distract them and to get through August the 1st without the option being taken up. And that's, I'm sure in a million years Alpine never even thought, they probably knew about it, but they probably even thought about it at that time. And it may have been a matter of 24 hours or something like that, but bottom line is, if you don't take up an option exactly on the knuckle, the option's null and void, the contract's null and void.
For multi-million dollar, tens and hundreds of million dollar business, it's phenomenal that they hadn't quite worked out the contract and dotted the I's and crossed the T's to get what they had. It's a phenomenal error.
Well, yeah. I mean, these things happen. I mean, it's not the first time it's happened really in terms of Formula One. We've seen this sort of thing before, and we've seen drivers being massively overpaid and being given lots of options to get out of their contract many times before as well, which is the situation with Daniel at McLaren, you could argue. But I mean, think about the other side of this, which is that Oscar Piastri has yet to start a race, has got 2 Formula One teams fighting over his talent and fighting over his ability. Pretty impressive. And he's actually turning one of them down, a team that won a Grand Prix last year.
For a guy that hasn't sat in the seat just yet,
Well, yeah, you know, he should be so lucky, as they say. You know, there's a lot of young guys out there who never even going to get a sniff of a test of a Formula One drive, let alone be in a position to turn down a major team. I call them a major team because it is Renault, you know, it's a big manufacturer. And as I say, they won a Grand Prix last year, as recently as last year. So they're no mugs. And, you know, he's turning them down. And it can only be to go to McLaren, in my view. I can't imagine it would be anywhere else.
So Peter, I mean, we're a bit biased here with Oscar because we've spoken to him for a number of years now on this program as he's sort of gone through the grades. From your understanding, the mail that you get, how good is he? I mean, clearly he must be good if there's two teams that are kind of fighting over him, because he's always been concerned that he didn't necessarily have the money behind him to be able to get a seat. But now it looks like his actual actions are going to do the talking for him. Yeah,
no, he's there on talent, and he's got a massive amount of talent. There's no doubt about that. I mean, you could even take that conversation a bit further and say, is it actually a good thing for McLaren to have him, bearing in mind they've got Lando Norris, who's an incredible talent. And if you look at any incredible talent, whether it's Max Verstappen or Lewis Hamilton or Charles Leclerc or even Michael Schumacher, if it's any of these great guys, they really don't want somebody super quick in the other car at any stage of their career. And most of them get through their careers without having somebody super quick. So from the point of view of Lando Norris, getting the best from Lando Norris, is Oscar Piastri the right guy to have alongside him? You could argue Daniel Ricciardo is in many ways the perfect foil for Lando, because he doesn't tread on Lando's patch at all. Having said all of that, people that know Lando well, and I have to put my hand up and say I don't know him that well. I've watched him drive pretty, you know, over a period of time now, but I don't know him well enough to be able to say this. But people who do know him well say that he is the sort of guy that does really need somebody super quick in the other car in order to get to the next level. He needs somebody to push him, and that he's obviously not getting that from Daniel Ricciardo. But having said that, you know, Lando's doing a pretty good job, isn't he? Whatever's going on there, he's doing a pretty good job.
Yeah, no, he is. He's doing a bloody good job at McLaren. So Marcus Ericsson, who is an IndyCar driver, woke up this morning and he decided to get involved in this conversation. He drives for Honda in the IndyCar series in the US. And he's put a tweet out this morning, Pete, with what he sees will be happening in the rest of the F1 silly season, as he calls it.
Yeah.
So Ocon and Pierre Gasly end up at Alpine, Piastri and Norris go to McLaren, and Daniel Ricciardo ends up at Haas with Kevin Magnussen. That's what our man, amongst other team changes, that's what our man Marcus Ericsson tells me today. Is there any chance that Daniel will end up at Haas?
Oh, I'm sure if Daniel rang Gene Haas tomorrow, or has already rung him and said, I'd love to drive for you next year, I think Gene would probably say yes, wouldn't he? I mean, why wouldn't he say yes? I'd be surprised if Daniel wants to do that, you know, given the way his career has gone, the races he's won, the esteem in which he's been held over the years. Does he want to go around driving for Haas now? I find that a bit sad, really. But anyway, yeah, I mean, if he's desperate to keep racing, I guess he can do that. I mean, he's made a lot of money since he left Red Bull. You know, you've got to be looking at 20, 25 mil a year. So, but if he wants to keep racing, yeah, I guess that's probably a better option than, right now, it's a better option than Williams. Although if I was Daniel, I'd probably go for Williams, actually. They're owned by a big American company. You know, the car's not looking too bad now, and got Mercedes power, not a bad team to be with. But again, you know, for Daniel, it's a bit of a come down, isn't it? From regardless whether it's Haas or Williams, because, you know, this is the guy that used to win races in a Red Bull, and he's won one race at McLaren, and he's been comprehensively blown away by Lando.
I think, as you said before, it all comes under the heading of Daniel should never have left Red Bull.
Well, no, he shouldn't, because, you know, it's one thing, you see it in all sports, it's one thing to do that sort of move, to leave a really good team to go to maybe a lesser team for more money if you've won your world championship and or you've won a major or whatever it is. But Daniel hadn't won a major, he hadn't won a world championship, he'd won some Grand Prix and he is really good, but he left, you know, what is undoubtedly the best race team in Formula One. He left Red Bull, and had he stayed at Red Bull, yeah, there would have been uncomfortable moments with Max, but there's no doubt he would have won by now. He probably would have won at least another 7 to 8 races, I would think, in his career. He probably wouldn't have won the championship last year, but he would have won more races than Perez won, that's for sure. And, you know, and he said no to all that, purely because his ego, I guess, couldn't take the whole Max, Red Bull, Helmut Marko thing. And on the other side of the fence, there's a lot of money suddenly to be earned at a team like Renault, which seemed like fun. Exactly. And I think when you do that, your whole psyche probably changes as an athlete, as a sportsman, because you've suddenly decided to have a different perspective on life. And that changes you. It changes you in subtle ways and changes the way you drive. And you get in the car. It changes more than anything the way you're self-critical. And then you probably stop being self-critical because you've made it. You got the money, you got this, you got that. And, and being self-critical is the hallmark of a great racing. It's a hallmark of a great athlete, whether you're Roger Federer or Lewis Hamilton or Max Verstappen, or Charles Leclerc. They're all really self-critical guys. Much more than the midfield drivers, I think, to be honest.
And when would you expect the signatures to be locked in for next season? How long will we go for the conversation?
Well, I think what will take time now, potentially, is the deal that Zach's going to have to do with Daniel. He's going to have to, and don't forget, Daniel will be driving for him for the second half of this year. So it's not a comfortable situation for Zach, and he would be ruining and regretting the contract that he drew up initially that allowed Daniel so many options, if you like, and not many on Zach's side. And so that, that's a big thing. I mean, Zach in the past, I think he took a hit of 32 million to go from Honda to Mercedes engines. In other words, he was getting free engines from Honda, and then he had to buy the Mercedes engine. So that was one of the first things he did when he took over McLaren. He took a hit for 32. So, this will be another hit, potentially, in the sort of 20 mil region. Maybe less, maybe they can negotiate it down. Maybe McLaren will finance him a drive next year somewhere else, whatever. There'll be some sort of compromise if that's what Daniel wants to do. But I think that'll be the log jam in terms of getting everything in place. What was the other thing Marcus Ericsson said? Marcus Ericsson said something else. He said Daniel to Haas. What else did he say?
I can't remember. Stand by, here it is. So he said Alpine, Ocon, Gasly, Alpha T, Schumacher.
No, Gasly, yeah. Yeah, Gasly maybe. I mean, Gasly has just re-signed with AlphaTauri, so, and again, he's a Red Bull driver. I'm not sure that would happen because Gasly isn't going to want to upset Red Bull, I don't think. And from Gasly's point of view, is Alpine that much better than AlphaTauri? They are right now, but AlphaTauri is a pretty good team at the end of the day, and I'd be surprised if he does that. Gasly's going to wait until he can get into something a lot better, whether it be a Red Bull, a Ferrari, or a Merc, I would think.
He's a great talent.
He is a great talent, and he's just renewed with AlphaTauri. So I can't see that one, to be honest. But maybe Marcus knows more than me.
Do you reckon that there's any chance with this conversation at the moment that Daniel won't finish the season in the McLaren? That'll end up being too hard to work together? Possibly. I mean, it could well be. I mean, they could get to a point where Zach says, look, I ain't going to pay you more than X. And Daniel says, well, my contract says Y. And they say, okay, well, obviously we can't work together anymore. We'll put Piastri in the car for the last 7 races and see you in court. I hope it doesn't come to that. But, potentially, I think it would, because Daniel, the things that Daniel's been saying, I want to say at McLaren, it's where I'm committed, all the rest of it, all that has the hallmark of a driver who does have a contract, a cast iron contract. I can't obviously speak for any of the real legalities, but I'm just telling you what it looks like from the outside, or suggesting what it looks like from the outside. And to me, it looks like Daniel has been reminding people pretty subtly, or unsubtly maybe, that he does have a cast iron contract with McLaren, and if they are going to ask him to leave, it's going to cost him a lot of money. There's a bit to play out, and Aussie's in the thick of it, as you say, with Oscar Piastri, Daniel Ricciardo and Mark Webber in the action, Pete. Always great to chat F1 with you. We appreciate your time. Thank you.
All right, mate. Good to chat.